So after making the Western Conference Finals last season, the Minnesota Timberwolves have taken a step back completely this season. And there's a few dynamics here at play as we're going to break this down layer by layer and hear from Anthony Edwards as he begins to kind of unload some of that pressure that's on his shoulders. But before we get to all that, sometimes for those of you who are listening, you see someone get a promotion at a job, or you yourself have been given a promotion. But at the same time, the position itself might be a lame duck position, or it could be a position in which you're not going to gain the support from upper management. Or it could even be a job where they know the task at hand can't be fully completed by one person, and they're kind of testing to see if they want the position to even exist. So the reason why I'm stating this is because Anthony Edwards this season has been sort of put in that position, especially coming off the highs of last season. The Minnesota Timberwolves are the first NBA team I've seen in a long time who actually had a really good team going forward as the Western Conference begins to shift. Stephen Curry's taking a step down. Same thing for the Los Angeles Lakers. They're not really in prime position to compete like that. We see the Oklahoma City Thunder rise and add Alex Caruso as well as Isaiah Hartenstein to the team to get better. So the consistent contenders year in, year out, that conference is in a state of transition. The T-Wolves easily could have just kept Karl Towns for an extra season because he's valuable throughout the league. A modern big that can shoot, stretch the floor off rip. There's going to be teams that are going to value him regardless of when the T-Wolves will trade him. So they could have at least paid the tax and test things out for another year. But instead, they chose to save money. And that's why I say there's numerous dynamics here at play. It's not all on Edwards. They chose to save money, thus kind of stunting the growth of guys like Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid. The spacing is not good. As Karl Anthony Towns, as I said before, off rip, he does automatically create the space because he's that much of a threat. Now, Daniels doesn't necessarily have the space to operate and the freedom of taking certain shots as he used to. Mike Conley also has regressed, so Anthony Edwards is doing more of the ball handling. And when you look at the trade, Dante DiVincenzo, of course, he adds three-point shooting to this team, but he doesn't necessarily create that spacing where guys like Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels could utilize right away, or even Julius Randle. There seems to be a headbutting between him and Naz Reid being out there on the floor. The T-Wolves are going to have to pick one of these guys or the other. And the regression is very visible. Anthony Edwards, surprisingly only at the age of 23, this is the first time where he really has the team to himself. He doesn't necessarily have to coexist with the other first-round overall pick, Karl Anthony Towns, on the team. So this is his first season to have the full keys to the Ferrari. And in a way, he's kind of doing him right now because he understands that the dynamics that are at play right now, this team constructed the way it's built currently, it's not really going to work. Also, things that were called into question going into the Western Conference Finals last season, his playmaking ability, the quick decision making when defenses give him different looks, it kind of got exposed last season during that conference finals. So thus far this season, we have not really seen a progression. But again, he's only 23. We see a young player handling the pressures of everything being put on his shoulders in a sort of lame duck position according to the expectations coming off of last season. It's not realistic. But right here, we're going to hear Anthony Edwards, after a few post-game interviews, slowly begin to unravel. And again, keep this in mind. This is a young player still trying to figure out how to win on a high level. But sometimes the passive aggressiveness, calling out teammates, is going to come across a way, especially when he's just chucking up a lot of three-point shots very early on in these possessions. And his style of play is not galvanizing his teammates and motivating them to consistently play good defense and actually be involved in the game. It's very ISO driven, and Edwards is going to have to pick that up. But again, let's take a look at Anthony Edwards speak on some of these post-game pressers as he tries to find his own unique ways of calling out his teammates and putting the onus on guys to do better. First, we'll start off with the post-game presser after losing to the Sacramento Kings, which was their fourth game in a row. Let's check it out.
We looked like front runners for sure tonight. Like, we was down, nobody wanted to say nothing. Then we got up, then everybody like cheering and hype, and then we get down again and don't nobody say nothing. That's the definition of a front runner. And like we as a team, including myself, we all was front runners tonight, and it was some for sure.
Y'all bring it together.
We've been trying to figure this out for the whole year, man. We thought this was defense was our identity, and it's not looking like it at all. We don't know what our identity right now. Me and Mike was talking about. I think we soft as hell, like as a team, internally. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not to the other team, but like internally, like we soft. Like we can't talk to each other. Just a bunch of little kids. It's just like we playing with a bunch of little kids, like everybody, like the whole team. We just can't talk to each other, you know. And we gotta figure it out, man, because we can't go down this road.
And Edwards is also gonna have to figure out how to adapt his play style to involve his teammates a lot more, and choosing his words more carefully, calling some of the players kids, including himself, like we're just a bunch of kids. When you got some vets on the team, you got guys like Julius Randle that just moved his family down there, coming from an unexpected trade with the Knicks, and he's looking for a brand new contract and some stability for his family. So words like that might not rub real well with vets like that. But again, Edwards is a young player. I like his leadership style. At least he's willing to confront any uncomfortability and attack it head on instead of being passive aggressive about it. But here he is again after a win against the Warriors, and listen to the way he kind of attacks the uncomfortability of the inconsistency of their defense.
Everyone is guarding at a high level, but Jaden and Rudy is being the anchors that we need in the defense. I think that's the main. Like Nas and Julius is fucking playing defense. You know, I've never seen them play defense before, so that's fucking incredible. And he's right here. Put the camera on him. He's just guarding his ass off. But yeah, man, everybody is guarding, and the two guys that we need to, you know, lead us on the defensive end has been doing that night in and night out for the last month, I would say. So it's fun.
Now that right there was very interesting. Julius was sitting right next to him. Again, I like Edwards' style. He's a very young player, but he doesn't mind attacking the uncomfortability of certain things that teams go through, and he confronts it head on. This is a problem we're seeing throughout the rest of the league, especially when the Golden State Warriors was on their run. That blow up between Draymond and KD, it's almost like the organization tried to move on from that without even confronting that it even existed. But Edwards right here, he's in a unique space where he's trying to balance clearly having the keys to the franchise and also letting ownership know that they really put him in a fucked up situation. Again, he's trying to figure out how to maneuver through all this. This is a young player, and even though the keys to the franchise has belonged to Edwards for a while, this is really the first time where he has the freedom to really do him. And I think he's still navigating that territory. But here he is again after a loss against the Knicks, where the T-Wolves' energy was very lackluster.
In offenses,
Yeah, we don't have shit on offense. We don't have no identity. Like, I mean, we know I'm gonna shoot a bunch of shots. We know Drew gonna shoot a bunch of shots, and that's all we know. We don't really know anything else. I mean, it's not on the coaches at all. It's on us. We out there playing, but we got to make it easier for each other. Coaches put us in great positions too, man. We just don't do it.
Again, Anthony Edwards got to be real careful about the words he's choosing. Quote unquote, we ain't shit. It's like he's saying things that are either too low or too high. But at the same time, it's almost as if he's trying to communicate with ownership on the repercussions of their decisions to get rid of Karl Anthony Towns. Very subtly in that statement, Julius Randle chucks up a bunch of shots. He only mentions him with that. Didn't mention anyone else. But here's Edwards once again showing his frustration, complaining to the refs after a loss against the Warriors. And you know, when guys start just hawking into referees, that's really showing their frustrations with the current state of their team. Because the way the NBA is kind of rotating through these brand new officials, you're going to get a bad loss because of officiating, but you should be able to move on. But it's hard to move on when these losses are piling up with the expectations from last season making that Western Conference Finals. They're supposed to be building on that.
They're fucking terrible. Yeah, all of them, besides the woman. Yeah, but the other two dudes, terrible. Excuses, the reason they call a foul, the reason they don't call a foul, the shit was terrible. They don't want to talk back to my coach. They don't want to talk back to me. I said one thing to the ref, he gave me a tech. Motherfucker told one of my teammates, if I would have said y'all calling the bad foul, he wouldn't have gave me a tech. Niggas, they just sensitive, and they terrible. They never give us the...
Yo, Edwards is talking like he's in a room with just me and you, man. Yo, Edwards is letting it fly. Once again, this is a young player adjusting to the frustrations of just having so much expectations, but the moves your ownership had made during the offseason really sabotages those expectations. That's why I made the analogy earlier in the segment of watching someone get a promotion, but the position is really a lame duck job with no support from upper management. These things happen on everyday jobs, but right here in the NBA, we're seeing a young player go through this.
They penalize me and Drew for being stronger than our opponent every night. We don't get no calls. So, yeah, that's how I feel about the officials every game that we play.
Did the frustration of that carry over, like, in the game?
No.
Just not let it?
No, it didn't carry. I mean, it's just hard to, everybody keeps saying play through it. It's easy to say that when you're not dealing with it.
Right.
So,
See,
that's what's frustrating.
So you think that's a thing that's been consistent all year, not just tonight?
Hell yeah, it's been consistent all year, but tonight was bad. They was getting ticky-tack fouls and we weren't getting nothing.
And it's also been consistent all year. You guys are spacing your offensive as well as defensive effort. That's another thing that's been consistent throughout the year.
So that's just how I feel about the officials. The two dudes, not the woman. Yeah.
Do you feel like the frustration, has that impacted the way you attack? Like, I know they
Hell
are
yeah.
often guys, you know, like they're sending extra help and stuff.
Yeah,
It does
they
seem like
is.
sometimes you're not going as much as like
Yeah.
you otherwise would.
Yeah, and that's why. Shit, because I get penalized for being stronger than my opponent. So they get them the benefit of the doubt. I get the same, they bump me the same way they bump everybody else, and I never get the call. So I don't know what got to go down, but something got to happen because that shit is terrible.
Edwards, you know that's bullshit, man. How often do you foul out of the games? That right there shows you that you already know what's up. You're the star of the team. They're not fouling you out from night to night when the fans really come in there, pay good money to see you. So you're getting the benefit of the doubt. You're the star of the team. You know how this league works. But once you really see guys start going this route of just blaming the refs, start blaming frivolous shit, you already understand that there's major frustrations internally and there's a lot going on. But here's Edwards again after another loss to the Celtics, leading up to a rough December through January. And this is a hell of a way to start off the new year with extra losses on top. Once you get to that third month of the NBA season and you're still losing consistently, that's when really the alarm bells start going off crazy. But also keep in mind, against the Celtics last season, he had some really great battles with Jason Tatum. And when you step into the following season, the expectations go even higher. And those pressurized situations, sometimes you got to see how young players really react to that. A great example is when the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown without Kyrie Irving made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, just for them to shrink the following season because they actually had expectations of making the conference finals and the NBA finals. So performing with those expectations for young players is a lot different. And that's where Kyrie Irving for that team really would have helped out because he's used to performing when having those expectations.
Third quarter, you took one shot but had 5 assists and you guys scored 34 points. Is that kind of the way forward for this right now? Like to just get up as much as possible? And
Hell no. I mean, well, I'm sorry. Is that a cussing word?
No. You can say how.
Okay.
You're good.
I don't know, man. That was a good brand of basketball, but it's not how I want to play. Of course, I mean, I'm only 23. I don't want to just be passing the ball all night. You feel me? Like,
you don't like Conley.
yeah, at all. But the way that they guarded me, I think I have to. So
I was gonna say, how hard is it to just stay engaged?
super hard.
Yeah.
Super hard.
Do you
I
think
mean,
that's-
because I'm wired to score the ball.
Do you think that's what teams are trying to do to you, like mentally trying to take you out of the game?
I don't know.
By
I don't.
placing you like that.
I mean,
It'll be hard for them to take him out of the game if he was using his teammates properly. You see, that's the craziest part about all this. The things that he struggled with last year in the Western Conference Finals is what really he should be doing right now And it'll be hard to take him out of the game with that. It's the playmaking, the ability to read defenses. That weakness from last season is what's really being exposed with the lack of spacing. Guys just really sitting there watching Edwards go ISO one-on-one 24/7. That progression really takes a while to build up, as we've seen Tatum and Jaylen Brown finally overcome it in last year's NBA Finals. Those guys were finally ready for that big stage because it's something that got really exposed during that 2002 NBA Finals against Stephen Curry. Tatum and Brown, their playmaking skills, just when the shot's not falling, the ability to make crisp passes to their teammates, they had a lot of turnovers. But time and experience is what really heals all that. And this exact scenario is playing out for Edwards.
I mean, that might be a part of it, but I know they're just doing it. I don't know if like their plan is like, let's mentally take them out, but because it don't like take me all the way out the game, but it definitely frustrates me a little bit. But them doubling me definitely is like, bro, what is going on? Like, so yeah, I be trying to figure it out, man.
Is it something where you have to just try to get the ball back after you give it up, or how do you?
Yeah, but then I don't want to make it seem like I'm like chasing the ball every time, you know.
Right.
But then when I get double and give it up, and then go to the corner and make it seem like I'm just like, all right, boom, the double team won. So like I don't know what to do, honestly. But it's not fun, of course, you know, because I don't want to look like I'm not trying or not as good as I am, you know, because I am, but I can't show it because I'm getting double teamed. You know, so.
Is it a pride thing when you see SGA do what he did the other night?
Yeah, and then Tatum, and then the next team we go play Cade, and then, you know, like it's definitely frustrating. You know, to see these guys cooking us and I can't cook them because of the whatever the adjustments are.
Man, right there, all those complaints, especially about getting double teamed, you're going to have to expect that all night as a star player. But just all those complaints right there, I don't know if he's subconsciously talking to upper management about the way this team is formulated. Mike Conley beginning to age out of the NBA. He's really regressed. He's not handling the rock as much. Also, the spacing, DiVincenzo does not create the same spacing as Karl Anthony Towns. He has to get hot to create that spacing. But Towns off rip, he created that spacing, which allowed Edwards and guys like McDaniels to cook and make their cuts and go to the hoop. Julius Randle is clearly affecting the way Naz Reid is sort of going through his development, as they're two players that kind of have similar styles. And the T-Wolves are going to have to make a choice. Keep one guy or get rid of the other. And that right there is really going to expose that they got rid of Karl Anthony Towns for nothing if they just let Julius Randle opt out of his deal and just walk away. Again, they could have held on to Karl Anthony Towns for another year and just paid the luxury tax, because regardless, he was still valuable, even at his high contract. Another team would have made a move to trade for him regardless. A modern big who could space the floor, who's still performing at a high level, and he's in his prime. But unfortunately for Anthony Edwards, the superstar always takes the blunt of the blame, when in reality, this was a cost-cutting move by the Minnesota Timberwolves, and it's during a time in which this franchise has been in no better position into chasing for an NBA championship. They defeated the Denver Nuggets, who a team in itself has been losing role players year in, year out. They're sort of regressing the team around Jokic. And then you see guys like Stephen Curry and LeBron James no longer in real serious contention to be at the top of the West. The Phoenix Suns are still going through the motions of figuring out their team. They have too many redundant players. The faces of that conference is beginning to change. We're seeing the rise of the Houston Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Los Angeles Clippers have a bunch of injury. Paul George went to the Eastern Conference. This was the best time to actually run this back one more time and pay the luxury tax. This was very unfortunate because at the end of the day, the T-Wolves, they were going to move Towns regardless, because even the potential new owners of Alex Rodriguez and his business partner had expressed to a venture capitalist firm that they were trying to acquire money to buy the rest of the team. They told him that they were going to get rid of salary. So for Anthony Edwards, the media is not really going to frame this story as ownership cost cutting and grabbing a bunch of players who really don't fit. And in Dante DiVincenzo's case, doesn't really space the floor off rip. He has to get hot in order to do that. But it is what it is. For Anthony Edwards this season, he's going to have to go through the motions, only being in his 5th year. It's a real sticky situation, but it looks like he's just kind of doing him right now. He's just chucking up a lot of shots. Very early on in the shot clock, his teammates are discouraged. He's going to have to find a better way to get them involved. There's many stars throughout the league that are getting double teamed, and they still find ways around it. They still find ways to involve their teammates. It's going to be hard for teams to double team you if you're getting your teammates involved. And one last thing, that Rudy Gobert situation, it was a great contract for the T-Wolves if Towns was there. Them getting rid of Towns just changed that whole scenario of Rudy Gobert when you really look at it. Because now he's just really a defensive player who kind of makes you play 4-on-5 basketball on the offensive end. He actually adds into the clunkiness of the spacing on the offensive side of the ball with Julius Randle and Naz Reid. So very unfortunate, but the T-Wolves did do a cost-cutting measurement when trading Karl Anthony Towns, and the new pieces may have just come to this team because it was the best available that they can get. The new CBA does make it hard to actually manufacture these types of trades. The Knicks technically was working on this trade since the NBA draft, because in hindsight, they drafted a European French guy, had him take a pay cut just enough to make that Julius Randle and Karl Anthony Towns trade work out. So it is what it is. Anthony Edwards, unfortunately, is just going through the motions for what's going to be a lame duck season for the Minnesota Timberwolves.